Today we are going to give you some screaming buys in Dynasty. These are guys you should be going and sending trade offers for right after you watch this video. We have 6 of them, technically 7 of them, but 6 of them, and we're going to go through them today and give you some deals that you may want to pursue of these guys, some deals that we've seen from these guys, and why they are huge buys in Dynasty Fantasy Football. First, make sure you hit the like button. It's free, easy, and you just do it, and it bloop, lights up, so make sure you do that, and that also helps us out a lot. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 2K before draft day. So
we're going to say it every video now.
Yeah, I know.
Until you finally subscribe,
hit, like,
until we finally get to 2K. And then we're going to say it for 3K.
Yeah, and then we're going to have a big draft day celebration. We're going to do some live streams and stuff like that. So make sure you subscribe.
Yes, sir.
We're at at the time of the recording of this video, we're like 18, 15, I think. So we're going to get there. But you got to hit subscribe. Make sure you chat over English. Check out our locals page. There it is. And that's where all exclusive content is. Let's get into it here. Updated Dynasty buys. We did some Dynasty buys early in the season. We told you to buy Kyler. You're still buying Kyler. That was pretty much the main point of that video. But in this Dynasty buys, there's going to be a little bit of, I don't know. I don't want to call it complaining. I'm not going to be complaining, but I'm not happy. Because
oh no,
it's kind of the first buy is going to be Debo Samuel. So you can put Debo in his stats on the screen if you would. But in my Twitter notifications is just full of people arguing this. But we put out a poll yesterday, and the poll basically said we can't believe we have to ask this question, and we can't. But who would you take in Dynasty? Pollard, Pittman, Hockenson, or Debo? Pittman and Hockenson are tied at 30%, and Pollard and Debo are tied at 20%. No,
I'll let you go.
No, I'm gonna sit here and brew before I.
Yep.
What is wrong with you guys? I mean, seriously, what is it about Tony Pollard that we're that excited about? Tony Pollard, I mean, he's coming off of a broken fibula. He's 25. He's franchise tagged. They're gonna draft a running back to play with him. You think Tony Pollard's the workhorse between the tackles back? Seriously? Do you think he's going to outperform what he did last year by a large amount? Do you think his future is secure? And we're taking him over Debo Samuel? I am the first to admit that Debo Samuel had a not as impressive year, not nearly as impressive. I told him for months he wouldn't have a good year, and he didn't believe me. But for the love, guys, Tony Pollard, a 25-year-old running back. Everybody wants to harp on age all the time, but all of a sudden, Tony Pollard, I guess maybe because this would be his first year as the main guy, there's no risk involved with him, right? Not to mention he just came off an injury, which is what everybody says as you get older, these running backs. What is the deal? Debo Samuel, guys, you got to think back to where Debo Samuel, I mean, obviously this last year, not one to write home about, but for the 49ers as a whole, it was a pretty tumultuous year. There's tumultuous. And, the year before that, obviously you saw Debo Samuel produce at an extremely high level more consistently. Now, what is Debo Samuel's outlook from here on out? And obviously, I know Debo Samuel, he's getting up there in age as well, but he's really actually not. And he's still a pretty fresh wide receiver for his age. As far as his outlook, man, I mean, I do not see him being as bad as he was last year. I mean, there are going to be plenty of you that jump in the comments and say Brandon Ayuk is the best wide receiver on the 49ers. And I don't know if he agrees with you, but I agree with you.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
We tweeted about this because I responded to that.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is the best wide receiver on the 49ers. But the best fantasy wide receiver on the 49ers is Debo Samuel, and it's not close. I don't understand why we are so close-minded about guys like Debo Samuel and why we have such a short memory. Again, Debo Samuel, when you're looking at that season that he had in 2021, I mean, from a receiving standpoint, it's just ridiculous. How many receiving yards did he have that year? Is it 1,400?
Debo?
Yeah.
It was
365 rushing yards. And look, last year he came out, he had 632 rushing yards and 232 rushing yards and 632 receiving yards. So I understand the recency bias and the concern to some extent.
They also played with 3 QBs over the course of the entire season. Like there was no sense of consistency ever in that offense. So You really hit the nail on the head with all of that. I don't really have much more to say, but keep trade cut is the gold standard, apparently, and Tony Pollard is now greater than Austin Eckler, who has been a top 2 producing running back the last 2 seasons, and he is more valuable than Debo Samuel. So, and he's right behind TJ Hawkinson.
One of the Austin Eckler was... Nah, I'm not even...
Yeah. Moving on.
This is a bias video, not a Tony Pollard video.
Exactly. Moving on to, we've got some top tier quarterbacks here, actually, and there's not going to be a ton of you're still going to have to pay a lot to get these guys because they are cornerstone
but not as
quarterbacks, but not as much as you would have expected to have paid for them last season. That's going to be Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson. We're going to put them together because they're going just a couple picks apart, and they're kind of in the same situation. Neither of them have long-term deals yet, and what are we expecting for them to stop playing football? Why is Lamar Jackson going for less than he should be right now? I mean, some of the deals are just atrocious. I mean, it's like a couple firsts for Lamar Jackson, really? I don't know what to do with that other than Lamar Jackson. He's going to get a deal, guys. I don't really care if he plays for the Ravens or another team. He averaged on his MVP season 30 points per game. That has never been seen in fantasy football before. He's still only 26 years old?
Yeah, and the main similarity between them is that recency bias is taking over for both of them because they both had less. They both didn't live up to expectations last year.
Yeah,
which I've got a newsflash for you. What our expectations are as fantasy players shouldn't be the end all be all for our players' value in Dynasty, whether they meet them or not.
Correct.
It should not. It should not. And these are guys that are going to get long-term deals, that are going to get paid, that both have some aspect of rushing upside. Lamar, in his case, elite rushing upside, and are both going to fill up fantasy points fast. I mean, and they're cornerstone assets, and you're getting them cheaper than you normally would. So those are two guys, honestly, that are very, very good buys in Dynasty Fantasy Football.
I'll tell you what, man, Justin Herbert especially, his passing volume alone, I don't know how that's not a screaming buy for you. I mean, he's literally throwing the ball consistently more than 40 times a game. I mean, and he's pushing 60 sometimes. It's just
not to mention
what are we and I mean, I know Staley's still there, and that kind of sucks because we think he's a terrible coach, but
he is.
At least they're going to try something with a new offensive system, and maybe they'll actually let Justin Herbert take shots downfield.
Yeah, no, you could definitely see Justin Herbert was kind of neutered by his offensive coordinator last year in the sense that he was really not. He seemed very tentative to throw the ball downfield, but I mean, it was in part because they weren't really drawing up plays for him to do that. And a lot of Justin Herbert's woes last season, I mean, you can see a pretty clear difference from a metric standpoint when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen played and when they didn't. That definitely made a difference. I mean, because outside of those guys, and you're talking about guys like Josh Palmer stepping up. Obviously, he's throwing the ball to Eckler, but that's not. I mean, that's more Eckler getting fantasy points than anything. And in reality, if the Chargers draft a receiver or tight end, which they should, and if they do not, I will flip my lid. But if they do, I mean, you're going to get a bolstered receiving core. You're going to get a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, who will be better than Lombardi. I mean, he just will be. Kellen Moore, is he that impressive? I don't really know. He's been with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are always meh. But
I think I personally think he's mid at best, but I think all you need is mid for Justin Herbert to be good in fantasy.
It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing how much they can hold him back between Staley and whatever offensive coordinator they get. But he is a cornerstone asset that's going to last in your team for years and years and years and years. I mean, I had him ranked in the top tier quarterbacks last year, and I'd still dang near almost put him there. I have to acknowledge that he took a step back from a production standpoint. However, when I'm looking at longevity, when I'm looking at the ceiling, when I'm looking at what I believe Justin Herbert can do from a year-over-year perspective in Dynasty Fantasy Football, I love him. I love him. And at this value, you're telling me I can get him cheaper now? Goodness sakes. They say not to roster your Dynasty darlings, and by they I mean us. We said that. But when they are screaming buys, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah.
So, all right, Treylon Burks. So Treylon Burks, obviously coming out of Arkansas, and rookie season-wise, I can see why you would be disappointed. I can see why people are looking at this and saying, oh, but the problem is, I mean, 444 receiving yards on 33 receptions in 11 games. So with Treylon Burks, obviously you were wanting more, especially because there wasn't a ton of receiving competition there in Tennessee for him. However, when you're looking at Treylon Burks' efficiency metrics, that's where you start to get a little bit excited about what Treylon Burks brings to the table. So talk a little bit about Treylon Burks and what we see in him that makes him such a big buy right now.
With Burks, we've said this time and time again, but we are way too spoiled with the high producing rookie wide receivers that have come in recent years. And with Treylon Burks, there is no one in that offense in the passing game aside from him right now. Yeah, they'll probably draft a receiver, but any of you guys who watch Treylon Burks, and we unfortunately have to watch a lot of Tennessee Titan football every single year, he is no joke. In terms of efficiency, he was very, very solid. He struggled with injury. He had that turf toe thing, right? I think it was turf toe. Yep. And he was playing with Ryan Tannehill, who was banged up for a significant part of the season as well. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had to play with Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs towards the end of the season when he finally was getting into his groove. I don't know what you were expecting when you were drafting Treylon Burks. Assuming you were a rebuild, why did you expect him to produce right off the bat? Why is his value taking a hit when he showed very clear and very impressive flashes, not just in terms of athleticism, but also some games in terms of production?
Yeah.
So I bought him this offseason before a bunch of the free agency moves that I knew were going to shake things up. I bought Treylon Burks and a bunch of junk, and I sold Dalton Schultz, David Montgomery. Schultz is now in Houston on a one-year deal, which sucks, and Montgomery is the RB2 in the Lions offense, and I sold Jacoby Myers. Yeah. So like that's the kind of thing that you were getting for Treylon Burks. Pretty like solid stuff. Getting for Treylon, or that's what you're giving up to get Treylon Burks. So,
and he was still top 32. He was 32, I guess. He was 32nd in yards per route run. Yeah, and he had such. Yeah. I mean, he had such little opportunity. Really,
one of the worst passing volume offenses in the NFL.
And really, what's funny, and the thing is, we knew that Treylon Burks when he came into the NFL was going to be pretty raw, and so now he's lived up to that expectation. He didn't have a very flashy rookie season, and I think Mike Vrabel was obviously, kind of, just a little bit careful with putting him on the field. I mean, he didn't get a ton of snap share, and though that's in the games he did play. And, with Treylon Burks, he dominated the SEC. Arkansas was bad when he was there, and he still dominated the SEC. He is a freak athlete. He's got a freak wingspan and catch radius, and I think this year, as he starts to put some of that raw talent together, you're going to see a big jump out of Treylon Burks, and you'll be very happy you bought him in his current price.
And look, it's not like look what the Titans invested in him. They let go of A.J. Brown to draft Treylon Burks, and while the funny thing is they ended up firing the GM who really made that move, and reportedly Vrabel wasn't very happy about it. The point still stands that they invested that much in Treylon Burks. It's not like they're going to not utilize him. Like, he is a key asset in their offense.
Who's the other receiver on Tennessee that was a rookie last year? Is it Kyle Phillips?
Yes, people
remember when Kyle Phillips was a thing?
Guys, Kyle Phillips. Oh my gosh. That's what the Dynasty community does.
We know.
We try to get high on these guys that have zero draft capital and completely forget that Treylon Burks went in the top 15 picks of the NFL draft.
Is one of the funniest things.
What the actual heck?
That's one of the funniest things that ever happened in Dynasties, because we just picked him out and we're like, oh, Kyle Phillips might be legit here. Like, he might. That shows what we know.
Khalil Shakir, oh my gosh.
DeAndre Swift. How dare we talk about DeAndre Swift after we ranked him so high last year, and he came out and, essentially got every freaking touchdown taken from him by Jamal Williams. Well, the good news is Jamal Williams is gone. The bad news is David Montgomery is now there. So with DeAndre Swift, obviously not the season we wanted from him last year. Very upset about that and very disappointed as somebody who practiced what he preached and went and got a lot of DeAndre Swift. It worked out in some weeks, but in a lot of weeks it did not work out for me. And I was very, very upset with that. But obviously this last year, when you're looking at his production, he had less rushing yards than the year before. He had 542 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, which, Jamal Williams had a league-leading 17 or something like that. And then receiving-wise, he had 3 receiving touchdowns. He had 70 targets and 48 receptions. So still, for limited role as he had, pretty good. And, honestly, I think his volume will tick up a little bit again this year.
It will, and that's really all we're asking for, because his volume was so atrocious last year, and he missed 3 games, and he was still RB21 on top of that. So like all it's going to take is a little uptick in production, and the boogeyman Jamal Williams is gone. David Montgomery, I'm sorry, he's not. I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think he's really going to amount to that much. I don't think he's going to fill Jamal Williams' shoes. Detroit is a team that, especially last season, if you guys watch Hard Knocks, they're a team that really prides themselves on awarding work ethic and character, and they'll definitely give the time and the snap share to the players that are leaders on that team. Well, Jamal Williams was one of the leaders on that team, and guess what? They just let him go because guess what? He wasn't really that good. David Montgomery has no affiliation with the program or the team. He's coming from the Bears, and to me, this just shows that the Lions are probably going to invest in DeAndre Swift, maybe even long term, and this is going to be his year to prove it.
Did we not have him in our first buys video, DeAndre Swift?
No.
So because
we were too reluctant. But now with the David Montgomery signing, I think that's kind of a solidifier.
But I know I've listed his efficiency metrics off in a video. I'm going to do it again real quick. He was 10th in targets, 11th in receiving yards, 12th in receptions, third among running backs in fantasy points per opportunity. Which I mean, that's all relative and weighted. That's a really, really nice stat. 6th in target share, 5th in yards per route run among running backs. 8th in true yards per carry, 2nd in yards per touch, 5th in breakaway run rate, 2nd in yards created per touch, 8th in production premium, 7th in expected points added, and that's the other ones I don't even want.
Yeah, we live in a PPR world, guys, a receiving upside world with running backs. I love that stuff. And look, we're talking about a guy who has that. He has that ability, that PPR ability, and the gold standard currently has him ranked as RB17 behind J.K. Dobbins, who has a shredded knee and no receiving upside. I mean, what do you want us to do here? I think long term, you're going to look back at DeAndre Swift's dynasty value and you're going to say, yeah, DeAndre Swift ended up being a disappointment. But we're looking past that, and at this point right now where DeAndre Swift is going, which is apparently RB17 behind a guy with a shredded knee who's going to get replaced, that's called a buy.
I mean, he was 15th in points per game among running backs, so it wasn't that bad.
I know.
I don't think it can get much worse. And you're getting him in the 6th round. Like, hello. Like him.
Compared to the first last year.
Well, okay, so why is Nick Chubb a buy now? Like, what is funny about Nick Chubb is everybody wanted to overdraft him for years and years and years. So finally, Nick Chubb, he came out last year. He had a really, really solid year from a production standpoint. And that was still with Kareem Hunt on the team. Like, I don't think people are taking into account that Nick Chubb actually, and of course they're probably going to draft somebody to take a slice of that backfield, but at the same time they're going to be passing the ball more because of Deshaun Watson. When there are carries, Nick Chubb's going to get it. Nick Chubb just turned 27 years old. I mean, you look at his production last year. He had 1,500 rushing yards on 5 yards per carry.
1,500.
Not to go along with 27 receptions and 239 receiving yards. So that's another 50 fantasy points in the receiving game and 13 total touchdowns. He was 6th overall in fantasy points per game at 16.6 points per game. I mean, now this is like when we finally got Chubb, like, away from Kareem Hunt, and he's going to be the guy, and he's going to produce for your dynasty team, and he's sliding in like the 7th, 8th round. I mean, 9th. I find myself taking Nick Chubb and not really wanting to, but I feel like I have to because he's gonna his what he scores this season is going to outweigh his value, like where he's going. That makes it worth it at this price. I'll take him there. And honestly, you should be too, especially if you're a contending team. But even, if you're a rebuild, you're going to be able to flip Nick Chubb in the season a lot more. You remember last year when Nick Chubb started the season, he was like the RB1 through like 6 or 7 weeks, I think. And him and Saquon were the two that were up there flip-flopping.
Yep.
And,
he was RB6 overall.
And you could sell Nick Chubb for a hefty price
Very hefty.
So that makes Nick Chubb a good buy for everybody. I mean, and I know he's old and a running back, but again, like we can't go with the rest of the dynasty community on every single opinion like that, because if everybody thinks Nick Chubb is a sell, then he becomes a buy.
Yes, we love investing in wide receivers because they last longer than running backs. Everybody does. Usually maintain their value, but really this point of the offseason, now is the time to buy those running backs that are high producing assets, because everyone has short memories and you forget who the players were that actually won you leagues.
Now, don't buy high-producing assets to score points. Buy them if they're good values to resell them. Like there's a stark difference between trying to make a move to contend there and then trying to buy low, sell high. So play the market, but
this is a market play.
But it's a market play, and honestly, last one here, Chris Olave. He was on the first video, and we literally put him on here again because we cannot. I cannot believe that you're getting Chris Olave right now. Chris Olave,
So I tweeted this a couple nights ago. I said, try trading DJ Moore, and a 24 first for Olave in your dynasty leagues now. And some of the pushback we got was funny. It was like, no, that's too much for Olave. That's just too much. Like, you're talking about DJ Moore, who's the wide receiver 1 in the worst passing volume offense in the NFL, and he's going to be a really good producer next year, apparently. And a 24 first. I mean, the 24 first, I get it's going to double in value next year, but it's Chris Olave. That's all I have to say. Really? That seems like a lot. It's not a lot.
Most yards per out run by a rookie wide receiver over the last 10 years. This is from PFF. Number 1 was Odell Beckham Jr., then A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then Chris Olave. Yards per out run, if you know anything about that efficiency metric, is usually a pretty good indicator of a wide receiver's success. Like, I mean, that usually translates. There's a clear trend there. And when you're looking at Chris Olave, not only he came out and produced from a metric standpoint, I mean, he scored fantasy points where he was somebody you were starting. He was somebody that was getting picked up off the waivers in redraft leagues and shallower redraft leagues because nobody expected him to come out and score like he did. But he came out, was immediately the number 1 option, maintained being the number 1 option over Michael Thomas, even when Michael Thomas played for like 5 seconds there. And then now, he's got Derek Carr coming in, so he's got a better quarterback. He's got a year under his belt. He obviously is more comfortable with the NFL game, and he showed what he could do his rookie year. And honestly, do they draft in the receiver there? Hopefully. But that would help Chris Olave.
Michael Thomas coming back honestly helps Chris Olave a lot, too.
Michael Thomas isn't going to do anything. He's going to get hurt again.
Yeah, I know, but it helps Chris Olave. Because there is another threat out there.
It does, but it's not going to help him. I mean, that's not a long-term solution, though. Like,
it does next year for people that are concerned about Olave's production
the 2 games he plays? I don't think Michael Thomas is in the equation here.
Okay.
I think he's done. Like, I don't think Michael Thomas is ever going to do like that much to actually make a difference for a player like Chris Olave in his career. Chris Olave is the future. Like, I mean, and with Michael Thomas, whether he's on the field or not, I don't think you can rely on. Even when Michael Thomas really was on the field last year, he wasn't really doing anything for Chris Olave. If anything, though, he would help Chris Olave. Like, I mean, any good receiver like that is going to allow more opportunity for Chris Olave. Yes. So I see what you're saying in that aspect, but Michael Thomas just isn't going to be the one to do it.
No, he'll probably get hurt again. I don't really trust him anymore.
So, man, go buy these guys. Go buy them. And look, especially if you're on our Discord, if you're not, make sure you head over to our locals page and get access to that. But that's where we tell the people on our Discord, look, go send these trades and let people counter. And obviously start lower, but then drop in the Discord and let's talk about them. We like to have those discussions with people on our Discord, and then get the whole community in talking about a trade. The best way to make trades like this and to go buy people low is if you have a community around you that you can kind of run things by and have discussions with. It helps you think things through. Like, if you're just making dynasty trades independently, you probably, and not ever like asking people for advice, you probably stink at dynasty. Because, I mean, if I did that, I would stink at Dynasty. I'd have all Justin Herbert shares, and I would have done nothing last year, and you would have had a bunch of Debos and Derek Carrs. And so that's the best way to do it. Like, man, go make these trades and then get in a community where you can run it by people. And again, our community is right there. But make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got content like this coming out all month, all off season, and all next season. So make sure you subscribe to get access to that. As always, we appreciate you listening. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.